Okay, we'll read from Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Book 1, Chapter 7, Text 110. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, rūpeṇa veṣeṇa, ravāmṛtena, vaṁśyāś pūrvānuditena viśvam, sammohitaṁ prema-bhareṇa kṛtsnaṁ, tiṣṭhantu dūre, vraja-vāsinas. My beautiful form, my dress, and the nectarean sound of my flute never heard before, enchanted the whole universe with overwhelming love of God. So what to speak of how though these affected the residents of Vrindavan? Braja. Purport: Krishna's beauty never diminishes even when he leaves Vrindavan to reside elsewhere for more than 100 years. Only in nostalgic retrospect does Krishna think he was more beautiful during his youth. But because of Vrindavan's special sweet mood created by spontaneous attraction between Krishna and his devotees there, and nowhere else, Krishna feels free to add certain items to his appearance, like the peacock feather in his hair, and only in Vrindavan does Krishna play his flute. Thus enhanced, Krishna's natural charm allures the entire world, creating a transcendental taste that defeats all kinds of material enjoyment and is millions of times more relishable than the impersonal happiness called Brahmananda. Everyone in the universe can taste this highest bliss of Vrindavan by hearing about it from scriptures like Bhagavatam as presented by pure Vaishnavas. Thus the supreme bliss of Krishna consciousness is available anywhere. Still, those who can live directly with Krishna in Vrindavan and relish his association not only with their ears, but with all their senses, are certainly most fortunate. Learned scholars of the Vedas therefore conclude that the greatest perfection of life is to follow successfully in the footsteps of vraja-vāsinas, and of course be invited to take up residence in the vraja-vāsinas' eternal abode. Om Jnana Timirandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sapadantikam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So greetings from the Super Soul Farm. So I have an audience today. So I'll ask the audience, have you ever read Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta? Do you know what that story is about? So I'll just explain briefly so that you'll have the same context. It's the story of Narada looking for the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. And of course, the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy is the gopis. And that's what our tradition is about. It's giving this spontaneous attraction. Spontaneous attraction means when you don't see God in his majesty, there's more freedom or force relationship. Because when God is superior, it's a very beautiful spiritual feeling. But there's obligation. There's fear, there's distance. And it's not bad in those type of relationships. That's the sweetness. Like if you have a respected father You know, if you're a little bit fearful of disappointing him, if you feel some obligation or duty, if you keep a little reserved, it's part of the bhav. But in comparison, the relationships where there's not that reverence can be much more powerful. And especially Krishna's relationship with the gopis. So Sanatana Goswami, he has to give this to the world, and he meditates how to do it. And he channels this incredible story of Narada looking for the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. And in so many different ways in this story, that's presented. And now it's coming to the real, this is the last chapter of the first book. And now it's coming to the most forceful way of presenting that this love of the gopis is the highest, and the most forceful way is going to come from Krishna himself in his anger. And why he's angry? There's a whole story. There's so many stories within a story. We've all been relishing the people here that's been on my group is like Henry. Mm-hmm. Henry's been, because Mara's here, Henry knows Mara. He's been here forever. He's from me from the very beginning. He's 12 or 15 years he's been listening to these classes. So they've all been following. And now it comes, Krishna's angry with Satyabhama because somehow or other she's not appreciating, as the other queens do, because they're not envious, Krishna's love for the gopis. So he calls Satyabhama, and I'm not going to remember it all, but in so many ways, he tells him that, Satyabhama, and she's a little bit afraid, although he likes her type of love, that kind of contrary, resistant type of love. That's also an appreciation. And he says, I'm ruled by their desires. And so much, if they told me to renounce everything, I would leave immediately. And then tells her, Lord Brahma, and he quotes from Lord Brahma's prayers after the Brahma Vimohan Balila. He has prayers, and one says, what about the gopis? You can't repay them. And he said, even if I return for their pleasure, I don't see how that would help. Because there's a whole thing in this story. Why is Krishna not coming back if he loves him so much? He said, I'm going to tell you, Satyabhama, even if I return, I don't see how that would help, because they would just be, one, in a type of ecstasy, they would forgot their bodies, but worse than that, they're in such a state of separation for so many years that they'll only come out gradually, and that would take a long time. And then when they're half consciousness in this mahabhav, this incredible emotion, rasa-vai-saha, this incredible emotion, what would happen to them is the first thing they would think is, maybe you'll leave. And they'd be so disturbed, they would go down even further in separation. So he's explaining. And he said, they have so much love for me, they see a patch of darkness. They embrace it. And now this is the real heavy one, and you have to have a frame of reference. I wouldn't have feminists directly go to the 7th chapter, because Krishna says, the only way I married you, and he tells the story, is because you remind me of the gopis. And therefore I married 16,108 queens, because let me just go back a little bit and read a few more that I didn't get and just comment on them, and then we'll get to today's verse. He says, although the glory of those times have left me, that glory still resides in Vrindavan. That spontaneous love. And when I'm submerged in those oceans of ecstasy, enjoying these charming and attractive and more I was so attracted to the spontaneous love of these residents that I never knew when it was day or night. I was completely so absorbed. And even when I killed the demons, actually, people think it was real hard. You lived in Vrindavan, you went out in the forest without shoes, and he said, no, it was all delightful. I had fun in Vrindavan killing those demons. And I was so in an ocean of contentment. I was so much in an ocean of contentment that it was so painful hearing the demigods offer prayers. It was like a disturbance. I forgot the work I had to do in Vrindavan. That's why Rupa Goswami says, if you're all attached to society, friendship, and love, then don't go to Vrindavan. Don't go to Keshida, and don't see the beautiful form of Govinda on its bank. And my beautiful form, my dress, the sound of my flute, it enchanted the whole universe. When I chanted on my flute, Lord Brahma, who's sitting on a lotus, he starts to shake. And Lord Shiva is playing the drum. He gets all confused. But what to speak, how that flute attracted the residents of Vrindavan. Because that flute is my emotion. And what emotion is? It's the love for my devotees. And all the residents of Vrindavan, when they hear the flute, it's so mystical, that flute, that everyone hears their own melody. Everyone hears their own affection. Everyone. So what to speak of those residents? They lived in Vrindavan and they were hearing Krishna's flute directly. So my God. And when the demigods, and they're moving in the sky, and they hear my flute, and they hear then they become stunned, and everything becomes the opposite. The inanimate objects melt, right? And the animate objects become stunned. Everything changes differently. It just boom. They're hearing. So each of them underwent a transformation, which their own nature changed in just to the opposite. It's Satyabhama, do you understand this? You want to know why I'm so upset with you that you're not appreciating? So it's all culminating. Now, this is the end of the story, almost. We still have about 40 verses, thank God. It's just he's explaining this love and how deep it was. And he says, you can ask Kalindi. Because the Queen Kalinti is a manifestation of Jamuna. She witnessed. And what did she witness? She witnessed the Vrajajana Swara Vihara Anand. She was the Sakshini. She was the witness of these blissful pastimes, freely enjoyed by the Vrajavasis. This is such a good verse for me because I'm going back to Vrindavan, but I don't take it lightly because I just spoke to someone I know who's in Mayapur. I stay with them in Mayapur, and their friends in Toronto sent them tickets, and they're preaching there. They're giving class. They Russian speaking. They're giving classes every day. They wouldn't go if they didn't do that. But it was a lady explaining me a little bit the relief. Because when you're in India, you're so challenged. You're challenged legally, you're not a resident. I got to register there, and now they're going to approve me. And then, the weather and the people and the things, and here I'm sitting in Super Soul in upstate New York. No one knows I'm here. Once you go there, it's like a shift, especially when I know I'm going to stay there for 6 months. I love it, but it's a shift. There's no more. Vrindavan means for Krishna. No slack. If you're not for Krishna, you can't stay. Or you can stay and suffer. So I'm getting geared. I'm getting geared. I'm going to stay in my rooms in Vrindavan, which have been now repaired when I first come, just to get settled, to register. We'll do like that. But Vrindavan, wow. And, but I cannot arouse the same emotions in my relatives, either with joking or with attaining pastimes. So I can't open my heart as fully in Dwarka. There's conjugal in Dwarka with the queens, but it's not as forceful. It's just not as forceful. I'm missing it. I talk intimately with my wives and my friends, and I water sports I do, but it's just not the same as Braja. Braja is a reverence, so I can never feel the same freedom of expression, either with them. Because if someone is reverent, you have to be a little careful. Here in Dwarka, I found it difficult to break the jealous pride of queens like you. Embarrassed, I therefore put aside my flute. Krishna's queens played jealously, but they never really developed that opposite mood. And therefore, it's just different. And therefore, he says, I can't open my heart. I can't play my flute. I'm like the king. And I always give the example when Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. He was a jazz saxophone player, but he never played it in the White House. You know, because the White House is dun 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 dun. Here comes the president. Can't. But when he was in Harlem, he was like, doing this. So he said, and I can't give my heart to the same degree because of the expectations of reverence. And I'm just not as inspired. I'm in the White House, and it's there in Vrindavan, the gopis steal his flute. And when he taxed them at Dangati, they ambushed him at Dandivartana Kund. They even grabbed Madhu Mangal Sika, and they threw it over a tree, and they were like torturing him, and they were slapping Krishna. So I can't get that same, like Advaita Acharya. He was the Acharya, so Krishna always, so Lord Chaitanya always was very respectful for him. But he didn't like that. He wanted the mood of servant, right? But Lord Chaitanya was always, you're my superior. So what did he do? I think he preached Mayavadi philosophy, so Lord Chaitanya beat him. It's just so he can get that. He can be in the position of servant. So this is Krishna. And what I did and how I lived in Vraj seems so far away, I can't even speak of those things. Aho, bata, disappointment, I cannot perform the same pastimes. The Dwarka environment is foreign to the intimate mood of Vraj. I cannot even discuss this here. If I speak to these moods, the Bṛhad-vasis the people in Dwarka couldn't function. Just one person, almost as dear to me as the devotees of Vraj, will be able to explain these topics. Sukadev, the son of Badarayana Vyas. By the power of his great love, in the mood of the Vraj-vasis, he will speak something of those matters to his excellent disciple who resembles him in spiritual qualities and whom I once brought back to life. I don't remember where I began. I skipped a verse, but this is so nice because you can see, again, I presented the mission of Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami's genius in presenting it in this novel, how he's presenting it through the intricacies of this story is just incredible. It's just coming to this point where Krishna's with Satyabhama and he's telling him, this is why I loved them. And then here, he's saying no one can describe it. It's so intimate. No one can describe it. Because you have to have realization to describe something. It's like a 5-year-old girl. She can't describe romance. She doesn't have the experience. So how to explain Braja? It's first of all, it's something, when you want to understand a person, you can only understand the person if the person gives themselves to you. And they only give themselves to you if you have a certain type of relationship with them. So that kind of knowledge of Braj and all this thing, it can only be given to the person, and then the person has to have the understanding. That's why Uddhava was sent. Even though he was outside of Vrindavan, he was very intimate with Krishna. It's called the parishad. It's a servant who's the confidant. It's not just, it's like, so he was very close, and he was exceptionally qualified because he was the disciple of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, so he knew all the Shastras. He had this extreme intelligence, and he was a mantri. Mantri means an advisor, so he had emotion. He had all types of intelligence. He had emotional intelligence, he had devotional intelligence, he had shastric intelligence, and he had intellectual intelligence. And it's described in the Shastra that he has all these things. So somehow or other he could kind of understand it, because when he saw the symptoms of Radharani, he didn't get bewildered, because it's jalpa prati jalpa. Basically, she's talking nonsense. She's talking to a black bee. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. So he didn't become bewildered, because just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an impersonalist, when Lord Chaitanya fainted in the Jagannath temple, he can understand from Shastra that this was some kind of ecstatic trance. So just one person, almost is dear to me. Sukadeva is the parrot of Radharani. We discussed this in Radhastami, why Krishna's name has never been mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And Satyaraj wrote a letter to Narayan Maharaj in 1994. Narayan Maharaj gave a 5-page letter back, classic, why Radharani's name is not mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Because Sukadeva Goswami is Radharani's parrot. That's what Sukha means. So somehow she's manifests in this way to speak the Bhagavatam, but she has that bhav. And when you have prema, it's the highest emotion. So when we're very emotional, then the things that invoke that emotion create ecstatic symptoms that don't allow us to function. Right? If you really love someone and they pass away, I just give an example. When Ayendra passed away, Ram Roy was so dedicated to Ayendra. It was his life. And when he passed away, Ram Roy came to me. He had a nervous breakdown. He couldn't function. He just couldn't function. It was so painful for him. And that's how he started that kirtan. The only way to relieve his pain is to take up the service of his Siksha Guru. Okay, but that's Ram Roy. This is Sukadeva Goswami. So what was his emotional state that he could not, for a second, if he heard Radha's name? So finally, it's very confidential. And also, you have to understand that understanding the Bhagavatam, especially the gopis, there's only 150 verses. And I always thought, why is there only 150 verses? And I thought because it's not something that can be intellectually explained. It's something that has, something that has to be given to someone who has devotion and has the frame of reference, therefore, to understand God's heart. And therefore the Bhagavatam is not meant to just be intellectually read. One sadhu in Vrindavan told me that how did they get so many books about Vrindavan and so many things in the purports and the commentary? He said that they would pray to each word, and then volumes and volumes of meaning. And volumes of meanings. That's okay. But the volumes and volumes of meanings would come out. So only by the power of his great love, by the prema-bhareṇa of prema-bhareṇa, of his Bṛhad means Bṛhad, big, great, of his prema, of the power of his prema, he'll speak. Well, he'll speak kinship. He'll speak something of those matters. To his Shisha Vare, Vara means excellent, like Natavara, the most excellent dancer. Krishna is Natavara. So this is Shisha Vara, the most excellent disciple, who is Swa, the same, Sanibe, to himself. So this combination. So it's so nice in this book, and this is actually a summary of the Bhagavatam, the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. But in this book, in the dialogue, the genius of Sanatana Goswami is presenting, the genius of Sanatana Goswami is presenting, promoting the Bhagavatam. So it's brilliant how this is done within the dialogue. Purport: if no one ever hears Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes described, how will Krishna fulfill the main purpose of his descent, to spread throughout the world the transcendental taste of prema ras? Anticipating this question, Krishna answers it here. The glory of prema ras of Sri Vrindavan Dham will be revealed when Sukadeva Goswami recites Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Bṛhad. Because Sukadev's own devotional realization closely follows the elevated mood of the vraja-vāsinas, he has the power to convey the glories of Vraja in the ecstatic Bhagavatam poetry emanating from his lips. Even the brief glimpse of the infinite ocean of Krishna Bhakti Ras that Sukadeva will reveal in the Bhagavatam will be enough to impart to any human being who hears with honest intent the highest taste of pure devotion. Sukadeva will speak Srimad Bhagavatam to the most suitable hearer, the great Vaishnava Parikshit, whom Krishna returned to life when Parikshit was in the womb of his mother. According to the narration of Mahabharata, okay, we know that story, he was protected. So these two, you need both. You need the speaker and you need the hearer. Sri Parikshit Uvacha. So this is interesting, because this story is being explained by Maharaj Parikshit to his mother. So it's explained, this story that's being told. And he's telling of the story how Krishna is speaking to Satyabhama, and now Satyabhama glorifies him. So now we go back, because this is spoken to Maharaj, to Krishna's mother, after Maharaj Parikshit heard the Bhagavatam. His mother came, and he gave her a summary of the Bhagavatam. So this is a summary of Bhagavatam. And the summary I mentioned many times, we discussed this many times in the class. The Bhagavatam is a message. And the message can be spoken in many different languages. It's the same message. And even in the same language, it can be spoken in many types of language. Because different people understand words in different ways. It's like, when Raghunath preaches, he preaches the Bhagavatam, right? But he's preaching the hardcore and this and that. You know what I'm saying? It's the same message, but it's something contemporary is there. So, so at the same sense, this story was spoken by Marge Prickett to his mother. And the context was different. She wanted to hear what he heard, but he heard it in like 7 days. Maybe it was 6.5 days. Now he had a half a day before the snake bird comes to explain it to his mother. So he's got to tell it in another way. So he tells it in this story, which parallels the Bhagavatam. We discussed this in this class many, many times. So because Sukadev's own devotional realization, okay, he's able to do it. Even the brief glimpse of the infinite ocean of bhakti ras, Sukadeva will reveal in Bhagavatam be enough to impart to any. Okay, Sukadeva will speak Srimad Bhagavatam to the most. Okay, now, okay, Sri Parikshit Uvacha, Etadrasam vraja-vāsinas samrambhata kirtiyato mahaprabho punastata bhava nivesha sankaya tad prerita mantri vareṇa samgaya. Marge Prickett said, as the Supreme Lord continually, ardently praising, as the Supreme Lord continued, he's saying to his mother, and he's in this story, as the Supreme Lord continued ardently praising the splendor, the good fortune of the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, the expert counselor, Uddhava, grew anxious for the special ecstasies of Vraja might again draw the Lord into trance. With a gesture, therefore, he prompted the ladies to do something. So the whole story here, you weren't here for it, but I'll tell you, and everybody likes to hear, is that when Narada came looking for the topmost devotee, each one is pointing to a higher one. He comes to Dwarka to Uddhava. Uddhava deflects praise, points to the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan, and then there's a discussion amongst some of the key residents of Vrindavan. Are they fortunate or not? Because they're suffering. So one says, yes, they're suffering because they love Krishna so much, but someone says, well, how can that be mercy? There's a whole discussion of that. And it wakes up Krishna. And then he gets into the discussion with Baladev, and these thoughts of the remembering of the pain of the Bṛhad-bhāsinas in separation from him. He goes into a catatonic state. And the only way to revive him, when Lord Brahma finds out about it, is take him to New Vrindavan, not in West Virginia. It was in Dwarka, and it was an exact replica. And then they fooled him that he was in Vrindavan, so he came out of the trance. Wow. And then when he comes back to the palace, the other queens are happy, but Satyabhama is not. So now he's explaining to Satyabhama, and he's explaining about the gopis, and Uddhava, who's the counselor, saying, wait a second, if he keeps on going like this, he just may again crash. Sarva Mahishya Saha Satyabhamaya Vaishmya Dayodrag Abhishritya Murdabi Padal Krihitva Ruditarja Kakubi Samstutya Bhartaram Ashishamam Shanai. Sarva Satyabhama, Rukmini, and the other queens at once surrounded their husband, touching his feet with their heads by offering prayers with plaintive voices, wet with sobs. They gradually calmed him down. So he's going, and he's getting into this bob, the gopis, and the gopis this and that, and I miss the gopis. And Uddhava goes, gives like some hand signals. Come on, put this up. And then they all come, and the word samrambhata, used in text 118, can mean either ardently, furiously, or with passionate absorption. So, where's that word? it is anyway. So lest Krishna begin crying and lose control of himself again, Uddhava made a sign to Satyabhama and the other queens present, to which they responded without hesitation. Can we speculate what sign he made? Maybe it was like, cut it off or something. What? I don't know. Because the queens were always reverent toward Krishna, they couldn't pacify him in the way of the gopis of Vrindavan, but in their own way, they did the best they could. Bhojanartam chatenaiva devaki rohini tata anapanadi sahati tatta sigram paveshite. Uddhava also urged Devaki and Rohini to come in quickly with the food and drink for Krishna's meal. Rohini was in charge of the kitchens in Nandagram. So we can imagine her food. I'm remembering of the most significant preparation I ever tasted. You remember something? Jamuna's oatmeal, when I stayed in Henry's house for the 20th anniversary of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. She just made oatmeal. That was one. Another thing, 40 years ago, I can't remember, I was traveling in South India. And I went with this sannyasi. And Raghunath has a story about this sannyasi. When he comes back, he'll tell the story of this sannyasi. He was from Italy. I forgot his name now. But he took me to this temple. It was a big, beautiful temple in South India. And you go into a cave. And when you get to the end of the cave, there's a self-manifested deity of Krishna in the stone. Wow. So it's a temple that's built on a cave. And he brought me some preparation there. That was this rice that was with spices. And they even had little rock candy in it or something. But there was so many spices. That preparation, and when Narmasaki from Iran made the Supreme Personality of rice. And I wrote about that in Monday Morning Greetings. They have rice in Iran that if you put a bowl on the table, it's incense for your room. And sometimes they bring special preparations to me. One time, Siddheshri, she's one of the main preachers there, they used to bring for me like so many things. So much stuff they would bring for me, from Iran. The pomegranates as big as my head that, had real, it's unbelievable. And these sweet lemons, and one lemon is like a canteen. It's sweet. It's like not a lemon, not an orange. It's like a canteen. It's like you can carry it. And, all the pistachios and things like that. And so one day, Siddheshri brought these dates, which they can't import because they're so rich with sugar, they turn to wine. After but I remember the Raghunath's having a program, so we brought it there in the yoga shala. And we handed it out. They're like glove jubbins. You just can't believe. So that Supreme Personality of rice, it was pretty. See, I fasted yesterday in Ekadasi, so I did break it a little bit. So I could go off and just think about food, but I'm trying to think of other great experiences where you taste something that you've tasted before, but you've never tasted it before. It has some, and Radharani's favorite sabji is called arbi. But I never really had it until it's arrowroot, something like that. It's some kind of root, but you really have to know how to cook it. Okay, but anyway, Uddhava also urged Devaki and Rohini to come in quickly with the food and drink for Krishna's meal. The most intimate devotees of Krishna know his desires before he expresses them. By having lunch brought in, Uddhava wisely changed the whole mood. Earlier, Devaki had anticipated this need and left for the kitchen. And we can understand that Balaram also removed himself from the emotion-charged scene on the pretext of going out for his bath, because Balaram is from Vrindavan, so that may have also incited it. So we can't imagine. Of course, the Bṛhad-bhāsi wrote these, and their dal. I don't know how they make their dal. I don't. It's I don't know. It's hot, but everybody drinks tons of it. So I'm thinking, but when I go back to Vrindavan, I will go for those Bṛhad-bhāsi rotis. And then in Jatipur now I have a roti place. You went, right?
I don't know.
With
I don't know
Raghunath.
roti. Oh yeah, yes.
By the way, I got a phone call. I got a WhatsApp for the old man, and then his son got on the line.
Oh.
And he said, how is Mr. Raghunath? So, wow. Baladevam kṛtsnaṁ pravesya kritina teda durante naradas tiṣṭhe iti vigyapito vibhu. The expert Uddhava had Baladev come in after finishing his bath. Krishna then informed Narada, Lord Krishna, that Narada was standing in the doorway. So I'll just not, what I like to do is I'd like to read before. Rati, if you're there, if you could, when you send me the thing, send the last verse I did, was 122, otherwise I forget. I'm going to read further, but I'm not going to. Krishna is the all-knowing seer of everyone's heart, but he asked with a smile, why is he kept standing there? Why doesn't he come in as usual? Uddhava smiled and answered, my Lord, because he's afraid and embarrassed. Then the Lord, as always favors the Brahmins, himself brought Narada and spoke to him. Because Narada came in and asked that question that Uddhava referred to the gopis that caused the whole turmoil. So he's thinking, oh my God, what the hell did I do? I came in here and I disturbed the whole thing. The Supreme Lord said, Narada, my dearest friend, you're always eager to please me, and you are the best of those who relish transcendental emotions. You've now done me a great favor. No, you didn't disturb me. This was great. Because what they present here is that somehow or other, on this highest level, it doesn't operate like we operate here. So the disturbance of separation is the nectar of wonderful ecstasies. So it runs on a different level that we have here. And somehow or other, you can have both. So he's saying, no, you did me a great favor. Okay, 160. So we only have 40 more verses. And when we finish those, maybe we'll go into the second chapter. But now the book 2 and 3. But the problem I have is now that we got to the nectar of the nectar, or as translated in my local vernacular, the nectar of the nectar. Now that they got into the nectar, as they got into the nectar, it's hard for me to go back. It's just hard for me to go back and have to work my way up. So I think what I'll do, I'm thinking of the next part of the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. I will just discuss selected verses of the preliminary chapters, which verses inspire me the most. Because because it'll start off and then we'll have to go back through the universe. Now we went through we went through the universe, now we got to go back through the whole universe. And I don't know if I'm so advanced, but I don't want to go back to Vaikuntha. So it is true that when one is parted from those one loves, pure loves makes one suffer within, as it is a blazing fire. The burning pain creates a remorse that further deepens into irrepressible sorrow. Thus one at first seems wretched, But this anguish of separation is praised as greater than the happiness of enjoying with those one loves. Separation is so pleasing to the mind that it cannot be described. It always transforms at last into an abundance of pleasure. Only experts in tasting these moods can understand how this happens. After the pain of despair is relieved, one's heart feels fully satisfied, delighting constantly as one enjoys the great pleasure of meeting one's beloved. One may want to feel that separation again and may indeed feel distressed if one cannot. Thus, a person who can remain one of a beloved not present, can remind one of a beloved not present, is considered the most sincere and helpful friend. Please understand, when somehow made mindful of those one loves, one's given back one's life, forgetting those more dear than one's own breath is more painful than dying. Those dear as life, one can never forget, but when reminded of them in a special way, one feels happy, like one who has lived a life of good fortune. So today you have favored me greatly, and therefore I'm delighted with you. Please choose whatever benediction you would like. The benediction, he asks, is mind-blowing. Stay tuned.
Cliffhanger.
If you're here Wednesday morning, before I leave. Okay, let's go to Jamuna Jaya. If you can, anything you remember that inspired you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class. Many things inspired me. Quick sidebar. I loved you talking about food and knowing that Mara's in the room. And I can imagine her sitting there thinking about how she might create this with her genius. So I got a good giggle over that, thinking Mara's writing it all down to make it later.
She definitely liked the part where I was describing the food.
I could definitely see her like
as much as she enjoys pleasing others. That where
but,
if you spoke to me, I would think about how much I enjoy eating it. Yeah, go ahead. That's your realization.
But I'm just really loving. It's like Uddhava week in my life for some reason in the Bhakti Center morning class where we're doing a pastime where Uddhava is again giving good counsel. And I love whenever you describe him, the perfect intelligence that he has. It's not, it's shastric, it's from the heart, it's intelligence. And it's such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's a verse. Okay, great. And wasn't that at Adi's, that Sunday feast?
It was.
Now we're reviving it.
Yes.
I really want to show in New York what is a Sunday feast, because I think the parampara is broken.
Yeah.
And it's so important for the expression of love in a community.
It was awesome.
They get really nice food and they're not paying for it. It's not like they go to a restaurant and buy it, but the Vaishnavas we need that kind of nourishment.
Yes.
And it also creates an attraction for community to come together. And the only thing I know at the Bhakti Center, they don't, the Thursday night kirtan, but really having community event for a group, bind people together. So we're going to do that as a service. And it's October 13th, which happens to be Akadasi, but we'll make a great Akadasi feast. Somehow, I won't be there, but we'll somehow get a good
speaker.
Yeah. Okay.
It's awesome. I know Adi is through the moon, and I think we'll also help that place. They're just trying to get it off the ground.
No, and also we'll ask everybody to leave a donation. So they get something there.
Yes.
For basically, we paid $500 for that dinky little space near Tompkins Square Park. Now we get this palatial, incredible building with Adi's Bhav in it.
Yeah.
So I think we want to give donations, ask everybody to come to leave donations. And we want the basket at the prasad table.
Yes.
I want a room there as prasad for people to leave donations there, so we can, and we'll give it all to them.
That's great. Oh, Maris, this would be wonderful. Yay.
Okay. Have you seen Adi since the
Oh
program?
yeah. Oh yeah. I see Ani almost every day, actually. Yeah, no. He's so happy. He's
Did he
so
say
happy. And
something about the program?
oh yeah, he loved it. And this is what he wants. This is what he envisioned happening. He was
And when
especially
I'm in town, when I come back, we may do it more than once a week, once a
oh,
month.
he
Because
will.
then
Now
to
this is what
me,
he
and
wants.
what we'll do, at least twice, we'll do once a month for another speaker, for Kastuba or Sri Prahlad, Haryashva, somebody,
Mm,
Yogeshwar, somebody.
yep.
Okay,
Thank you, Raj.
okay. Um, Gail, you get your question if you want.
Well, since you all are talking about prasadam, I might as
Yes.
well share that I'm still relishing prasadam both from Adi's place because Sri Rupa gave me her mint lemonade as a birthday present that day. I got a whole gallon of it. So I'm relishing that, and I'm relishing the Bhakti Center's also rice. I just doing a few cashews there. So you hear my plates clanking. So yeah, I'm into the prasad this morning too.
Okay, okay, great. Bhakti Devi, Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Nice to see you.
You're
I
very
had,
blurry. Why are you so blurry? Oh, now you're
oh,
clear.
I don't know. Maybe
You're okay.
I don't
You're
know.
clear now. Okay, yeah.
At the Bhakti Center on Wednesday, I tried Radharani's favorite dish, and I think they told me it was taro root, and it
Yeah.
was delicious. Yeah, it was really good. But I just want to say about this story that you've been telling, like, for a while, I was like, how I felt was, Krishna's reason for like, it's such a cop out. But now I feel like now I kind of get it, right? Because he can never really go back and it can never be the same, right? And so there's some lamentation going on, right? And it's just such a human condition also, because I think all of us go through this and wish that we could go back to a certain period in our lives, that you can't recapture.
It's one way to look at it, but it's also another dimension. And what they mention that in the separation, there's really no separation because Krishna is there. And the message to the gopi is, "I'm there in my bhava." So Krishna is there. It's not like a physical distance. If you have that kind of love, you can actually contact Krishna. So they say that Krishna has aprakat and prakat. Aprakat is unmanifest, so he's always there in Vrindavan, and prakat is manifest. He's not always there manifest. But good, I'm glad you're finally forgiving Krishna. Thank you, Bhakti Devi.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, Haribo. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Tota Gopinath here.
Haribo.
Mahaprasad ki jai.
Jai, thank you. Haribo. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Garaj, Slow Govinda. Thank you for class.
Wow, Haribo. Jai.
Well,
Right. Thank you. Okay, who else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj,
Hare,
Surya Radhika here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Oh, yeah, say hello to the.
Oh,
Hare Krishna. How are you?
That is Surya Radhika and Yabat Sundari. Are you happy that your mother's there now?
Yeah, so much Maharaj.
What?
So
She
much.
got a post there for 1 year as professor in Vancouver, and that's where Surya
Oh,
Radhika.
wow.
Okay, Surya Radhika, I know everything.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
I know everything.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you. Hare Krishna.
enjoy your freedom. Go outside and yell Hare Krishna. Put your hands up.
Yeah.
But cover your head.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else say hello?
Krishna Maharaj, it's Yvette. Thank you for class.
Yvette is everywhere.
Hi, Mara. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Bo.
Great. Haribo.
Haribo.
Good. Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, Brajrade here.
Vajarade, Haribo. That was such a nice program in your house we had. That was wonderful. Thank you. Good. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Krishna-katha.
Krishna.
Thank you so much for the class. And I'm
Thank-
so glad that you are going to continue with the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. Thank you so
Only
much.
because of hearers like you. Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class. Thank you for your everything. Haribol.
Armand, thank you. Good that you're
Hare
here.
Krishna.
Great. Anybody else? Okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Amala, nice to hear from you. Great. Thank you. Okay. I'll just look through the people there. So I see everyone there. Okay. Great. Great. Wonderful. Okay. We'll go now. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu